indeed. What I would like to go into is to show the federated way, because after more or less than 1.5 years of an epidemic, it starts to be a bit in disguise what we are actually after and what we are all about. And the question emerging, what actually is the thing Federated wants to achieve and what it is, what makes them tick. So I would like to be as concrete as possible, although it's a very abstract issue in a way. Now, I will do that based on the fact that what is the origin of our project and where should that lead to and how to further participate and enjoy also the company of all you in further engaging and getting the federated way as the European way. Now, how do we go? It's always in the digital. It's always in a digital conference that the people who are explaining how digitalization works doesn't know how to handle a PowerPoint, but that is more or less, that hasn't changed since the pandemic anyway. Okay, so now we go too fast. Okay. I would like to start with the origin of the project. And the origin of the project is that we actually already started in 2011. When a couple of the people that are already partnering in the Federated project also came together because they were representative of a public administration, and we were confronted by the decisions of our ministers that they want to establish a maritime single window. We never knew why they decided to do that, but we were confronted in making an implementation process in order to achieve the digitalization actually in the maritime domain, possibly in connection to other domains and other transport modes. We have worked there as 14 countries in developing a kind of single window approach, which has as basis how to go from paper into digitalization, how to get in an electronic way the messages across. And actually in this 4 or 5 years period, we experienced some lessons which actually are the lessons that we can take on board for every project we are doing. As we are dealing with digitalization, we're dealing with data. We're not dealing with a translation of a paper into a digital format. And that cannot be stressed sufficiently because that is what some people do. They only say, hey, this is a document, how to put it into a digital format. That is not the issue. We're talking about data, which is a completely different way. Now, another way is if you come up with solutions, never forget history. We are always confronted with whatever we are going to do, that there's a legacy that many companies and many public administrations already invested a hell of a lot of money in what they have been doing, and they are not very eager to burn that investment and get to a next level. You always should take into consideration that there is a legacy. Now, and it is something which is also very interesting in the connectivity between member states, businesses and Brussels. Centralized solutions hardly work. That is not the essence of what Europe is all about, and that's probably not a sustainable way of dealing and getting together. So that also means that one size does not fit all. And what is very important, independent where you're dealing with the implementation of legislation, yes or no, there should always be a business case. If you're going to include people in developing a process, there should be some value in it. There should be a business case. So whatever you're doing, whatever you're trying to achieve, always take care that there's some worthwhile for every person to participate. Otherwise, you lose the tolerance and you lose the ability to make it work. Now, what is also very important, that if you're doing digitalization, don't trust the technicians. You always have to think about the fact that what you want to achieve on a policy level or on a business level always needs to be in coherence with what's technically possible. So we can always listen to the technical people. We are very wise, but we always should know what does it lead to and keep on asking. But what is also very important in all this sense is that governance is essential. If you want to be successful, put down the roles, identify the places people perform, try to get some decision making and get some commitment and interaction being in place. Now, in developing a project like the one on the maritime single window or future projects like this one, the Federated project, you always have a choice. Are we going to do it step by step, incremental, or are we going to put a revolutionary approach onto it? And sometimes you need to be bold. Sometimes you need to say, listen, despite legacy, despite all these technological people, despite the visions there are, sometimes you need a new approach. You only need to know when to put it there and that you take sufficient time. Now, in this project we once developed, actually, after a while, we were discussing about data modeling, standardization, and all these issues. And at the end of the project, we actually developed a kind of coherence of a transport data model in relation to the World Customs data model, which was quite a revolution. And at the end of a project, one partner said, actually, we did it wrong. We shouldn't have done it based on the data model. We should have done it on a harmonized data interoperability. And actually, this is still also very much worthwhile and very important for a project as the Federated project. It's all starts with a common or harmonized language. We don't need all to speak Swedish to understand each other, but there should be a link in trying to understand each other. So there should be a kind of harmonized data interoperability. This is actually the lessons we have learned for the last century or the last 10 years. Now, getting back to the single window, although we're talking about the Federated, a lot of people that are going to be involved in a federated way still have single window perspective by trying to develop a platform. Now you just should look, and if you're talking about data, you should go into another galaxy. So you have a ship, or you have a fleet, or you have whatever. You have a captain, and the captain has to transform and translate and provide data or information to the shore or to another person. So they have to translate the information into a kind of modeling, turn it into a code, and send the information, which is a sending, which is a push mechanism, and send it to another planet or to another platform or to another shore. There, the information is received, the message in a bottle is being collected, is being stored, is being identified, and is being provided to other people like the police or whatever you have as law enforcement agent. I'm now talking about the public administration. And if you do so, you are free to move in the galaxy. This is more or less the concept of the single window, which is very much behind in the thinking of a lot of people. Now, we are now living in a new paradigm. And the paradigm is we have to share. All should be shared, should be equalized, should be done together. Now, Simon already explained something about the European Commission policy and why we as Europe want to develop a kind of technology independency. What we are doing in the relationship of data transport is getting a seamless multimodal chain. We have to get seamless data interoperability for multimodal transport movements. That allows us to further develop supply chain visibility, develop new services, and actually what we want to get out of it is optimized assets management and infrastructure use. By sharing data, we can gain a lot. How to do it? How does it look like if we relate that now to a single window? If we're going to do sharing, actually, the question emerges, should we do sharing based on a push method? Should we send the messages in the bottle directly to the receiver? Or should we allow interoperability between the sender and the receiver, meaning the data holder and the data receiver or user? Actually, if you use that, you don't need to take some steps. You don't need to send it up. You don't need to specifically receive it or store it. Some people like to store it, but you get another paradigm. You get another perspective. And the perspective is that you have to start an interrelationship based on machine interoperability by not sending it, but making data available to the different stakeholders, to the different people. In order to do that, you need actually 4 requirements in order to go and to say, well, I'm sitting here next to Henk, and he's very much into space. He will tell later about the data interoperability and the semantic modeling we have developed. But if you want to reach platform interoperability, you connect between different platforms. You need, apart from the ability to talk with one another, you need an index, you need a registry, you need an identity, and you need access. And these 5 things are actually the principles on what makes the federated project tick. If you do it, you can not only travel to one platform only, but you can travel space, and you have your final frontier before you. You boldly go wherever you want to go. Now, this is the federated project, but I think I have to tell you more relating also what we have been doing lately. Anyway, we can exchange data between everybody if there is data interoperability. Now, if we go from vision and illustrations into the bold wording as we are used to in our high school training, we are talking about what we are achieving and want to achieve is an infrastructure provision that contains of a set of arrangements and technical applications to enable data in existing IT platforms or systems from companies or public administrations to become available to authorized users through actually a pool method. So you make the data available. We call it also a publish and subscribe approach. This is actually the federated vision. It took us a year to further develop that, and it contains many, many things. Anyway, I think first we got back. We established a cooperation, we established a goal. We actually identified that we as a partnership of 15 partners, and here you see the coverage of Europe being identified by the participation of 15 partners. We have more or less 40 European partners and an IATA partner, which is a global operating partnership located in Switzerland. So we're covering 6 countries in the world, so to say, if we're relating it to our global reach. And we want to use the lessons learned and to put words into practice and get both feet on the ground. What we will deliver in the end of, well, the end of our term, that is 2023, we deliver the building blocks, the master plan, which is being validated by the living labs. So it is a future-proof data sharing infrastructure. That is what we want to do, and that is what we want to do not only for public administrations, but also for B2B interoperability or from B2A interoperability. Now, in order to do so, we are confronted with some bottlenecks, and the bottlenecks are quite important to overcome. That's the language again. The legislation is a bit fragmented. Simon already identified the importance of not only a single window, but especially the FT, which is about surface transport in Europe. And there's not always a level playing field, being that there are some big American and sometimes Chinese platforms that before you know, they rule the world. And that is not what we want to do. What we also have identified is that the bottlenecks are also within the public administrations and within the companies themselves. And that is, we are always used to do it in this way. Why should we change it? And if we go to change it, it will cost a hell of a lot of money. And do we really like it? And do we generate new business out of it? And that is something which is very difficult and very important if you want to be a successful product. There should be a match between the enabling, because actually Federated is about enabling data sharing, but it should also have a resonance at the companies. And the resonance, and this is going to be identified in this kind of thing. How do you match competence with enablers? The competence is that actually many companies do not know what will be coming to their company tomorrow. They have difficult forecasts to make. They don't have so much knowledge available, and they would get more agile in getting that information. And that is something which should be overcome. And what we try to do at Federated Project in providing the enabling is What IT platform can I connect to? Am I then stuck to one platform or can I go to another platform? Is there a monopoly that I'm depending on? Where can I find the data? And what do I need to do as a company in order to freely go wherever I want to go? And then, of course, we have to translate paper into data. Now, this is something which we are doing in several member states, like in Finland and in the Netherlands. We have to identify the state of play of digital readiness in our member states in order to see whether data sharing is actually feasible. This is just a result of the Dutch investigation we did, and we identified there's two major steps. There's a digital transition we have to undergo, and after the digital transition, we can do the digital transformation, and we really can earn a hell of a lot of money. But what we actually experienced also in the small and medium-sized enterprises, for instance, in the Netherlands, that not yet 70% of all the SME companies have a strategy in place or working paperless, have access to data or have data process enabling facilities in place. So there is still a hell of a lot to do. But if you are doing it, you can start considering doing data sharing. We can implement APIs, connectors, start seeking cooperation. And if you're really going to be smooth, you can even engage with a lot of technical people. Then you're going to provide for a blockchain, artificial intelligence, and all these kinds of things. The sky is the limit, but there are some limitations as yet. But apart from all these problems, we also need to identify that whatever we do, we need in Europe and we need in our federated product enhance the operational brain power of public administrations and also of the companies. Oh, now I do it wrong again. Okay, good. So what are we doing apart from identifying all the problems? We are developing a reference architecture to allow everybody to engage. Freedom of choice is one of the primary engines. We want to engage the stakeholders. We constantly update what we have been developing, and we try to be as factual as possible. And in a galaxy where not everybody can connect, we try to enable everybody to connect as long as they're willing to participate. Therefore, we have a roadmap, and in the roadmap, you see different angles, different steps. We deal with all kinds of operators. They all own their own software. This is the legacy. They can connect to each other through different systems, and we provide the galaxy, so to say, the opportunity for all the platforms to further connect. How do the living labs then look like? You have living labs in cargo tracking, transport tracking, connecting chains of trust, container tracking, multi-transport platforms, whatever there is, automatic services, including customs. All these issues are further developed in different living labs. We have 22 to show for today, is about 6. And then what is the outcome? That is the services, more visibility, trusted digital operators. And in the end, we serve the really mobility policy of the European Commission or in our national governments, less CO2, less traffic congestion, less administrative burdens, and much more competitiveness. And well, the happier, the better you cannot think of. We do it in accordance to 37 leading principles. They are related to what Simon said we had to adhere to, which is plug and play federation, technical independent services and trust and security. And we are adding some additional principles to it. There should be, and that will be further explained in the next day. We have actually, in the state of play, we have more or less 2 phases. Many living labs, as yet, are focusing on developing a data sharing platform. That is beautiful as such, if you are allowed to start data sharing and start enjoying the merits of data sharing. But what we're actually trying to achieve in the next phase is the platform interoperability, that it's federated, that whatever you do, wherever you want to go, you should always be allowed to access whatever platform is available or to whatever company is there in order to identify, hey, listen, I want to do business with you. Hey, listen, I want to get your data. Can you prove what kind of technical arrangements do you have? Do they match? This is actually what we're aiming to achieve in the next coming 2 years. Not all living labs will deliver it, but we will deliver the components. The architecture of intelligence, or the architecture of connectivity. It's all about data holdership and data usership, bringing them together in different interactions. We want to facilitate the processes. Therefore, we have 4 major issues. We have the language. You have to find the data and to find the people. You need you have to get into the system, and you have to identify that you are secure. So in all these areas, there are different providers, different services, and we have to try to generate and set the scene, set the arrangement, develop a kind of governance. Where is the minimum requirements for the different companies to apply? Now you see also this flower. The flower is actually the basis of our semantic modeling. It will be further elaborated by Henk, but that is actually how we envisage that the physical world in the different elements of the multimodal process is being translated and being to be translated in a digital world. The end is an overarching proposition, actually a kind of internet of logistics. And you connect to that in different ways. And what the living labs will deliver in the end is a classification in what level we are able as federated product to deliver the maturity of the different elements that can be used by not only the European Commission, but the whole European community, and as IATA's there, the whole world, in order to further get acquainted and do the kind of Facebook connectivity that we all become friends, but then not by having a monopoly. Well, get connected, plug in, start feeling well. This is actually the connectivity we create. We create an AC/DC, so you can always plug in as long as you use a kind of transferable language. It's data on demand, it's open access, it's borderless communication. You can go wherever you like, it's safe. And it all starts with reliable data. The data should be in your system. You should make the data available and searchable through an index. You need a service register. You don't need to do the service register in your own system. We can provide you as long as there's a connectivity. There's a search engine. You need to identify, and there needs to be a set of arrangements. How easy life can be. What is specifically, and that is the importance of the data model, is there is no predefined data search methodology. You should be free to choose whatever you like to do, and you should be free to browse through the whole federated galaxy. Now, the output will be a validated master plan. It will be based on the true stories, and that's the living labs. We try to develop how to build it guide. And we try to build and develop a toolkit. Here you see a kind of model of the toolkit. I'm not going to get into it, but we want to provide for that kind of manual assistance to everybody on how to do it. Here you see the planning. I'm not going to do, I developed most of the issues. We are now in 2021. We are going to have a validated master plan, finalize the living labs for the next coming 2 years. And then probably we make a recommendation on how to do it. And what is of major importance, we always do it in consultation, because if we don't include the human element, we will never be successful. Anyway, this is more or less what I had to offer. It will be precisely identified later. And let's join us in our knowledge economy based on federation.